Hi, and welcome to another episode of Inside NDF, sponsored by National Dance Foundation. Each week, we interview another fascinating member and mover and shaker of the dance community. This podcast is dedicated to dance and dance education and those who make it happen. Inside NDF is sponsored by National Dance Foundation with the mission of hashtag KIC, kindness, inclusion, and community, along with reaching out and creating opportunities and giving everyone the chance to dance. So this week we are happy to introduce and announce Joe Naftal. And we have him listed as a dance entrepreneur, which you will see as we go through our interview how many exciting and different aspects he's involved in. So first of all, welcome, Joe. So excited to have you on board.
Thank you, Kathy. It's great to be here.
So we're going to kind of go through a lot of different aspects, which you're so multifaceted. It's fascinating. Plus, on top of all this, you're finding the time to serve on the UDMA board, United Dance
Right.
Merchants of America. So he's a busy man. But let's start at the beginning. How did you become involved in dance?
Yeah, so I like to just tell people I was really born into it in every sense of the word. My birthday's in June. My mom is a dance studio owner, so as you can start to do the math on that, she was pregnant with me as she was, going through her recital season, and that was that was the second thing happening, right? The first thing was she had a recital to put on, and I was born just about a week and a half before that recital, and the day before I was born, she was teaching class, and the next day it was time to go buy some props and get some stuff ready for the recital, and so I was, I had to go along with her to do all of those things. So right from the beginning, I was kind of born into that chaos. I knew that, the show must go on, and we had to move right into that. And then, like so many, second generation dance studio owners and people in the industry, I started taking dance class, right at age 3 when our studio started offering it. I took dance classes from 3 up until about junior high school, around age 10 or 11. And I realized at that point that, I loved something about theater. I loved making theater. I wasn't a performer. I wasn't a dancer. That wasn't exactly it. And then I started going out and figuring out where exactly my place within this, theater and performance world was to really find my exact home, knowing that we were really close, but it wasn't exactly being on the dance floor, being on stage.
And that's why there's so many interesting aspects to your career. Things, and this is what I really love, things that, you could have a love of dance, but not be the dancer. So let's start with staging and lighting. You have a BFA in lighting design from UNC School of the Arts, and you're a member of the United Scenic Artists. Your resume is amazing. You've been a lighting designer, supervisor for production at Hofstra College, Wonderland Ballet in Denver, Alberta Ballet Canada, and the Washington Ballet at the Kennedy Dance Center. So much more. But when did you first become interested in staging and lighting? Because this is not necessarily the first thing everybody goes, wow, I'm going to do staging
Right.
and lighting when I grow up.
Yeah. So I'd say it really started in two sort of facets. So first was growing up in the dance studio environment. Every June we were going to the theater to do a recital, and I just remember being a kid. My parents were busy, loading in scenery and doing whatever it was, and I was left unsupervised to run around and kind of watch what was going on. I just remember being enthralled with that process of bringing in the scenery, setting up the lights, getting everything ready, making announcements over the microphone. So I knew that from an early age, I wanted to be involved in making theater. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that this is the world I want to be in. This is the room I want to be in. And then right around middle school, when I was realizing I loved theater, but I didn't want to be on stage, that really wasn't my full passion, is when I just realized I wanted to be involved. So I started doing community theater, and I just kind of showed up and said, I want to be more involved. I'm really young, so I don't know what you'll let me do. But I'll come and I'll just start coiling cable backstage if you'll let me, do that. And I just started doing that, and opportunities just kind of come from that. All of a sudden they needed someone to run the light board because someone didn't show up. And I said, okay, I'm going to go do that. And I'm going to go home and read everything I can about it so that I come in tomorrow knowing how to do that. And then through high school, I just kept, working on lighting design, working on productions. And I was really lucky that I lived just about an hour outside of New York City, out on Long Island. So I would, in high school, write emails to lighting designers on Broadway who I knew had a show coming up and said, just a cold email, hey, can I come and sit behind you at the tech table in rehearsal? And I would leave school with my backpack, hop on the train, go into Times Square, go to the theater and just sit behind, after school, sit behind, Broadway show tech happening until 10 o'clock at night, and then take the train home. And, that just, again, showed me like, this is the room I want to be in. This is the work I want to be doing with these kinds of people.
That's amazing. Amazing. So, how did you realize that this could be something you could go to school for, to college for?
Yeah, so I knew it's what I wanted to do. I knew that's the direction I wanted to go in. I luckily had parents that, came from the arts. They were very supportive of me going to do that, and understanding that, it might be hard to make a career in it, but we have to let, people go and try and do that. And then I started looking at different programs, realized that, there were actually a lot of programs out there that offered it of all different levels. Started
Wow.
looking through it, and then, yeah, decided that's what I was going to major in.
So, how did you get your first start?
Yeah, so I mean, I was lucky I already had that start coming from high school, working in community theater, getting to work in all these different areas. And then in college, they were really great about getting us internships to work. I worked at American Ballet Theater as their lighting intern. I worked as an assistant at Shakespeare in the Park in the lighting department all through college. And then really from there, it was just about building networking. I kind of think back, there's no job I've ever had in my career. I've had a lot, but there's no job that I've had that was from sending out my resume or answering the help wanted ad. It always was, from someone I knew, whether it was high school or college or from the dance studio. I could basically take any job I've had and trace back where it started from.
All those volunteer hours come to pay, they all come back and pay out after a while. And that's the true person knowing the artist. Okay, if I just do this and volunteer here, I could come in.
Exactly.
So what do you think is the most challenging part of your career? I mean, is it the on-site? Is it the finding the jobs? Is it the continuation? What's the most, because shows come and go. They begin and they end.
So yeah, so I think it's two sort of things. I think on the artist side, it's really understanding that you're not just an artist, you're a business. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of artists to understand. That it's not just, okay, I'm going to go be Joe, the lighting designer, but I also need to be Joe, the marketing professional who's going to go out and get those jobs, Joe, the business development professional who's going to do the networking, and Joe, the finance professional who's going to track all my expenses so I don't have a outrageous tax bill. All of those sorts of
Real
things.
life things, you mean?
All real life things, right? Realizing that, you have to really treat yourself as a business and as a brand. So I think that's the first part. And then as far as doing the job, it's definitely the hours and the work towards it. It's a job that, it has a due date, right? There's opening night and the audience is coming and they're coming to see a show that needs to be perfect because they paid good money to come see it. And it's not like, other jobs out there that, okay, 5 o'clock comes, we can, punch out the clock and we'll handle it tomorrow. There isn't a tomorrow because the audience is coming tonight at 8 p.m. So really, that sort of looking at it in that way and that pace.
Listening to you, I can hear the dance studio owner mentality in your head. So it's not like everyone knows it's wonderful to be the dance teacher, the studio owner, the choreographer, but then comes all the real life business stuff that you have to manage
Exactly.
too. One thing just really helps with the other. So tell us, what was your most favorite memorable light show?
Yeah, so I've been able to do so much in different facets, from theater, opera, dance, themed entertainment. Something that I do other than just being a designer is I get to work as a lighting supervisor, or sometimes it's called a lighting director. And what that means is I go and I work for a lot of times ballet and dance companies on remounting the work from the repertory of famous works. So I spent a year at Paul Taylor Dance Company touring around the country with them, doing their Lincoln Center season. And my work wasn't to design new pieces, it was to remount the lighting for world famous works. So there's something, I'm a big theater history, dance history, lighting history buff. So being able to recreate, Mr. Taylor's famous work and Jennifer Tipton's lighting work, that was something that was really, inspiring to me, because it wasn't just, okay, this is my work that I came up with. I was actually being trusted to care for her work and make sure that it looked the same, in every venue we went to, no matter what the equipment was, whether it was a high school auditorium or Lincoln Center. So that was something I think for me, just to be a part of that sort of history of the dance company was important.
So that's amazing. So you had to make sure that the lighting was the exact same as was originally done.
Yeah, and that's something that's really
That's a
interesting.
challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting about dance because I think in theater, if a show is on Broadway and maybe it'll go on tour, but eventually it closes, and that's kind of the end of it. If we're
Right.
going to do Death of a Salesman again, we're going to do a different production of Death of a Salesman. In dance and in opera to some extent, these pieces, Alvin Ailey's Revelations, it's going to be done the same way it was done however many years ago, forever. You're not going to reinvent it, and it needs to look exactly the way it looked, even though now years later, we have different equipment. We have LEDs for some of these pieces that were lit with incandescents in the 60s, 70s, or 80s. How do we still create the exact same look as if you're watching it opening night?
That's amazing. That you know what? Because when I even think I mean, years ago, my favorite was always Martha Graham, and she just
Yeah.
it always was the same production, but never once do you ever think of the lighting being exactly the same because the lighting is part of the
All right.
actual choreography production.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and we don't want people to notice it. We want people to feel like this is the exact same thing they saw 20 years ago when it premiered or whenever it might be.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's, I mean, fascinating. And that's something for people who have a love of dance or theater, another avenue that they could go into that they might not necessarily have thought about. So now we have career kind of number two
Sure.
going at the same time as career number one. You are a man of many talents. So tell us about your teaching career. I mean, and
Yeah.
you've been teaching at even universities and colleges.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I never planned to be a teacher. I never thought of myself as a teacher. Like many people, you think of as a teacher as someone standing in front of a blackboard with some chalk and an apple on their desk, right? That's what we think of. And as I've been thinking more about it, I really do come from a line of non-traditional teachers. My grandfather, my mom's dad, he was a basketball coach. He directed the plays and musicals at his church, down to my mom, who was trained as a teacher. She went to school for education, but then never went into teaching. She went into, owning a dance studio, kind of unexpected for her. It wasn't her original idea. And then, to me, I really kind of think of my philosophy in teaching as just sharing things I'm excited about. I don't necessarily even think about it as teaching. I'm just so excited to have conversations about whether it's lighting design, where I work as an adjunct faculty member, or when I go out to teach at places like Dance Teacher Summit, UDMA, Energize. It really is just like getting to be in a room of similarly minded people that are excited about the same thing I'm excited about. And I think about, I would be happy to go do that in a bar with someone and grab a drink and talk about it. So the opportunity to get paid for it and to have a captive audience, listen to me blab about it for however long is, kind of just a gift in and of itself.
That is amazing. And it's really two different topics almost your teach it would have to teach about because I'm thinking if you're teaching at universities and colleges, they're wanting to be that lighting designer. But if you're at the dance oriented organizations like UDMA, Energize, and Dance Teacher Summit, they want to learn how to be able to have creative lighting without having to be the lighting designer per
Yeah.
se. So that's quite a big gulf of different teaching styles.
It is. I really do try. I've taught even at the university level. I've gone into like a choreography class and talked to a bunch of graduating choreographers. So it's similar in that sense too. And I really try to teach more about collaboration and how to have those conversations than necessarily the nuts and bolts of how to do it when talking to a dancer. I think there's so much fear of, oh, I need to know what type of light it needs to be, what color it needs to be in. And that's really not the important part. The important part is really being able to put your ideas into words and being able to explain your concepts to someone. They can figure out more of the nuts and bolts of it later, but really trying to get them to open up and have those conversations, especially with dancers who, as we know, are move first communicators, not necessarily, verbal or narrative first communicators.
Yes, yes, it's so funny. So if that wasn't enough to keep you busy, you have your lighting career, now you have your teaching career. You now become to the creation of Penny Prima. And that's the mission. I love this mission is to empower educators to create magical experiences where students master technique, explore their creativity through engaging characters and activities. So how and when and why? Not
Yeah,
that you're not doing anything else. Did this come into being, and tell us a little bit about it?
yeah. So we founded Penny Prima. I know the date. It was March 16th of 2020. Everyone can start to kind of just think about what the world looked like, what we were all doing right around that time. And it was a couple things. So first, personally, I had no shows to work on. Our studio was closed and transitioning to virtual, classes. So already, me and my mom, who co-founded the company with me, were thinking, okay, what's our backup plan? What happens if dance studios never open the way we knew them? Luckily, that isn't what happened. We're thinking through that, and we were thinking, okay, I'm stuck in my apartment. What am I going to do with my time? How do I keep myself from going crazy? And for me, that means starting a business. That's my outlet for it.
Sure, why not?
And we started thinking through, what ways we could empower teachers, especially at that time, to have tools that they could use to bring in storytelling and creativity, and have the same, so many kids they're on their phones or they're on TV, and it's almost kind of a fight for parents, the feedback we're getting in the studio, to come into the studio, right? Because why would you want to do that? Why would you want to leave sitting on the couch watching a TV show or playing a video game or playing on your phone to go put your coat on and put on scratchy tights and get in the car and drive to the studio, right? We have to give them something to compete with that for their attention, so that it's actually like, oh yes, I want to go engage with those same characters, have that same creative experience that we know that they're going to have once they get into the studio. So making sure they have those tools to compete in this new multimedia environment. So we wanted to give them all of those same tools. So we brought on Broadway singers, designers, all of that to come on, music creators, to really give it that same sort of resourcing behind it that all of these other things have, TV shows and video games, so that they could have that same sort of resourcing in their classrooms.
I love it. And how have you seen this grow?
Yeah, so it started with just four of us on a Zoom call. It was myself, my mom, our creative director Victoria, and our art director Laura, who just kind of sat around and said, this could be a terrible idea, but does everyone want to go on this journey with me? And they all agreed to go on it with me. And again, it started with us. We didn't know what the name of the company was. We didn't know what we were going to do. We just kind of sort of had an idea of what we wanted to do. And now we have, all of these different products, all of these different, songs and videos that go with it. And we're now in studios, across the United States, in Canada, in the UK, and Australia. So just being able to see this little thing that started, while we were all cooped up in our house, actually impact thousands of dance students every single week has been, kind of powerful for us to see that this was just something we just started doing to pass our time, really.
I love it. Which brings me to a question. How did we come up with the name?
Yeah, so the name, we literally just started spitballing. We had like a Zoom and a whiteboard. And it went through a couple things. It was, what's something that has the alliteration? What is something that we think kids will really be able to say really easily and engage with? And then the boring stuff. Is there a website domain and is it trademarkable? Like
Right.
those parts of it. And then
Those necessities.
yes. So we went through all of that. My mom came up with the name. She was one who popped that one in there. And then we checked it and we could see we could trademark it. So we ran with it.
Love it. Now, how do you see Penny Prima going forward?
Yeah, we just want to continue to be a partner to studios in whatever way we can, in building their programs and giving their teachers a toolbox to be able to add to their programs. We don't see ourselves as needing to replace what you're doing in the class. We know that we partner with teachers that are great teachers, and we can't replace that. We can't give you a teacher who loves kids, who's passionate about it. You have to have that. What we can give you is all of those resources and tools in your toolbox to make your classes even better, and all of the marketing and creative support to help bring more students into the studio.
Because we all have our down days, and that's a great resource to have a great toolbox to pull from that would really be wonderful for the
Yeah.
kids. I love it. Organizations such as Penny Prima are really a positive force in the dance community. And as you know, NDF's mission is that hashtag KIC, kindness, inclusion, and community. Why do you think that's important?
Yeah, I think, in the dance studio, we're with kids and we're with our students for so much of their lives. Even more than in grade school, where you
Mhm.
might only be with them for 8 hours a day for 1 year. We really have a really important role to play in shaping kids' lives, and creating the citizens of the world that we have tomorrow. So it's really important that okay, they know how to do a plie and they know how to point their foot. That might be important depending on what their
Right.
career path is. But what's more important is that we can create great citizens tomorrow who have all of those values as well. It's going to mean so much more than what their turnout looks like.
Correct, because sometimes groups of classes can stay together for 10 years. That's a
Right.
lot longer than you might see them in school. So, no, that is just wonderful. And we love what you're doing. I don't know, I think you probably do have any free time now with everything that you're doing.
I try. I do. I have my partner and my dog, so we travel and do all of that. But I
I love
definitely
it.
I'm always answering an email or doing something whenever we go anywhere.
So, being a dog lover myself, what kind of dog do you have?
Her name is Willow. She's a miniature golden retriever.
Which is still a big boy. It's still a big girl.
She is.
When
She's
we
about 30 pounds.
Yeah. So I have a Maltese, which is only around 9 pounds. So
Oh, yeah.
I look at
More
everything
manageable. Yeah.
getting bigger. Yeah. So I have to tell you, it was wonderful having you here today. I so appreciate it because I really think this is important to give people a well-rounded look at what they could do in the dance field if they wanted to do something besides just not dancing. So, would you like to add any final comments?
No, I think that is great. I think if you love dance and you love the arts, there's always something to do, and there's so many different facets you can go into.
That's so important. I agree. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. And again, if you would like to learn more about National Dance Foundation, please visit nationaldancefoundation.org. So we will see you again next Friday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And in the meantime, don't forget, keep dancing. Thank you.